They say war trains you to ignore what doesn't serve the mission. Bodies, voices, mercy. My squad was already moving past the wreckage, stepping over burnt metal and shattered glass like it was just another checkpoint. The air still stank of plasma and scorched fuel, but the smoke was lifting enough to see what was left of the Veruan dropship. Most of it had folded in on itself during impact. Anything alive in there shouldn't have stayed that way. I wasn't looking for survivors. Command hadn't sent us to rescue anyone. We were stripping tech and clearing hazards. Still, something kept pulling my attention to the twisted hull. Maybe it was the way the heat shimmered around it. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe I was just tired of pretending I couldn't feel anything anymore. I climbed over the cracked plating and dropped into what used to be the troop hold. That's where I saw her, the alien warrior from the broadcasted battles. Silver skin streaked with soot, hair braided with metal cords, eyes too sharp for someone half dead. Her legs were gone below the knee, probably burned off when the reactor burst. Armor still clung to her back and hips like it had fused with bone. She shouldn't have been awake. She shouldn't have been breathing. But she was. When I crouched down, she tried to reach for something under her chest. Her arm trembled and fell. She looked at me like she expected a bullet. That would have been easier, for both of us. Footsteps crunched behind me. Sergeant Cade leaned into the wreck and made a face like he'd stepped in rotten meat. "Voss, what the hell are you doing?" HQ said no retrieval. Especially not them. I didn't answer. Not yet. Juno, our medic, stood at the rim of the hole above us. She didn't say anything, just watched, the kind of watching that waits to see which way the wind is blowing before choosing a side. The alien's lips parted. Her voice came out rough, like gravel dragged across dry metal. "Eric, Voss." Cade blinked. "You give her your name." I hadn't. That was the moment everything tipped. Orders didn't matter after that. Regulations, politics, treaties, all background noise. I didn't feel heroic. I didn't feel noble. I just knew I wasn't walking away. Not from her. Not this time. Cade waited for me to explain, but I didn't. He hated silence. It made him think. He checked the readout on his wristband and muttered, "Command sweeping this sector in 15. We're not hauling around enemy dead weight." She wasn't dead weight. That was the problem. I slid my arms under her shoulders and back, careful not to press where the armor had fused into skin. She flinched but didn't cry out. Her blood was darker than ours, almost black in the low light, and it clung to my gloves like tar. Cade snapped, "You lost it? She's enemy command. Look at the seal on that armor. You touch her, they'll brand you a sympathizer." I lifted her anyway. She felt lighter than I expected, too light for someone built for war. Maybe blood loss, maybe shock, maybe both. Her head rested against my shoulder for a moment before she forced it upright again, like she refused to give me the satisfaction of looking weak. Juno finally spoke from above. "If she's talking and bleeding, she's alive. Regulations say we document at minimum." Cade scoffed. "Regulations say we don't risk men for something that tried to kill us 2 hours ago." "Something," Juno repeated, voice flat. "Not someone." He ignored her, which was his usual way of losing an argument without admitting it. I climbed out of the wreckage with her in my arms. The sky over Thalon 9 was still stained orange from the orbital fires, and the ground rumbled every few minutes from distant detonations the ceasefire hadn't stopped yet. We were standing in the quiet between aftershocks and politics. My comm pinged, HQ demanding a status update. I muted it. Juno caught up and walked beside me without a word. Cade trailed behind, cursing under his breath about court-martials and wasted time. He'd follow me anyway. He always did, even when he swore he wouldn't. Halfway to the ridge, she finally spoke again, barely above a whisper. "You remember?" I didn't know what she meant. I just answered, "No, but I will." Something flickered in her expression, relief, grief, or maybe recognition. Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp. Juno checked her pulse. "She's fading. We move fast or she won't make it an hour." Cade rubbed his temples. "Voss, you better have a plan." I didn't, but walking away had stopped being an option the second she said my name. We reached the old forward bunker carved into the ridge, a leftover structure from the first month of the war. Nobody used it now, not since the ceasefire talk started and funding was rerouted to reconstruction optics. Translation: uniforms and speeches, not field medics and repairs. Juno pushed open the rusted hatch while I carried her inside. The place still smelled of old coolant and burnt wiring. A broken comms console flickered on the far wall, like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to die or complain. I laid the alien down on one of the makeshift storage slabs. Juno tore open a medpack and started cutting away the armor fuse to her side. It stuck like welded metal. When she peeled the first plate back, the smell of burned tissue hit hard. Cade stood by the entrance with his rifle across his chest. If Command finds us harboring her, we're finished. Stripping tech from her body is one thing. Patching her up is something else. Juno didn't look up. You can wait outside if your conscience is allergic. My conscience is fine, Cade said. It's the firing squad I'm less fond of. I ignored both of them and focused on her breathing. Shallow, uneven, but hanging on. Juno pressed a coagulant patch along the worst bone and checked the neural ports at the base of her spine. She lost motor function from the waist down, Juno murmured. Nerve relays fried. Spine implants are fused. Even if she lives, she won't walk without full reconstruction. Cade snorted. Good. Less chance of her snapping all our necks when she wakes up. Juno shot him a look sharp enough to cut armor. She's still bleeding out. Hand me the stabilizer. I passed it to her. My gloves were still sticky with her blood. While Juno worked, I took a closer look at the collar seal on what was left of the alien's armor. There, etched under a layer of soot, was a human identification chip embedded in the alloy. I scraped off the char and stared. This is ours, I said quietly. Human tech. Why would she have this? Cade stepped closer, frown deepening. Maybe she tore it off a corpse. Or, Juno said, maybe she wasn't always enemy. Before anyone could argue, her eyes opened again. Not fully, but enough to focus on me. Her voice was weak, but clear. Not, leave me here. I almost lied to her. I didn't. You're not being left, I said. Not now. She let out a breath like she'd been holding it for days, and passed out again. We didn't speak for a while after she blacked out. Juno kept working in quiet movements, sealing ruptured tissue and checking her vitals every few minutes. The bunker lights flickered overhead, throwing shadows across the walls like the place was remembering old ghosts. Cade finally broke the silence. You planning to explain how she knew your name? Or are we pretending that didn't happen? I sat on an overturned crate near the slab. I don't know how she knows me. That's not an answer, he muttered. It's the only one I've got, I said. He huffed and started pacing a tight line near the door. That was his version of staying instead of running. Juno finished applying a Daymal mesh over the exposed muscle on the alien's side. She'll make it through the next hour, she said, wiping her hands. After that, depends on whether her body's as stubborn as yours. I didn't ask what that meant. She'd probably tell me anyway if I pretended not to care. The bunker's comm unit crackled to life before anyone could speak again. A distorted voice cut through static. Reckon Squad 7. Respond. Bioscan show movement in your sector. Report. Cade closed his eyes like someone had stabbed his last nerve. They are sweeping for survivors. If they ping and don't get a response, they'll redirect drones. I stepped over to the console and yanked the power leads. The flicker died with a faint hiss. Juno raised an eyebrow. That'll buy us 5 minutes. 6, if their system's still glitching from the storms, I said. Cade threw up his hands. Brilliant. Now we're not just disobeying, we're hiding it. That was already happening, I replied. He didn't deny it. The alien stirred again. Not fully awake, just a tremor along her arm. Juno checked her pulse and adjusted the foreline. The veins on her forearm were a darker shade than human, with faint bioluminescent lines running under the skin like dim circuitry. She's not standard infantry, Juno said quietly. Those implants, they are officer grade. Maybe reckon elite. Cade swore under his breath. So we're harboring someone important enough to get us all erased. I looked at the embedded ID chip again, the way it fused with her collar. Or someone important enough to explain things no one wants explained. Before Cade could answer, a soft beeping started from one of her armor fragments on the floor. Weak, pulsing, coded. Juno leaned closer. That's not human encryption. I already knew what she was going to say next, but it's calling someone. The beeping was slow at first, like a heartbeat trying to decide if it should keep going. Juno traced the sound to a fractured shard of her chest plate, its surface still scorched and bent. She turned it over and frowned. It's broadcasting a locator signal. Short range, not ours. Cade took a step back like it might explode. So either her people are coming, or ours will intercept it first. Neither option was good. I grabbed the shard and crushed the signal node with the butt of my rifle. The beeping died instantly. Juno didn't protest, but she watched me like she was adding something up in her head. Cade exhaled through his teeth. We can't keep this under wraps anymore. Someone's gonna notice the blip, even if you killed it. They'll notice faster if we start running without a plan, I said. He shook his head. You don't have a plan. You've got an injured alien and a death wish. Juno cut him before I answered. Save the lecture. Help me rewrap her side, her breathing slipping. Cade muttered something foul and moved in to assist despite himself. He'd always follow the rules until they became personal, then pretend he never cared about them anyway. I steadied her shoulder while Juno adjusted the stabilizer. Her skin felt cold now, even through the blood and soot. Her face was slack, but her jaw had the shape of someone who never begged for anything. For a moment, the bunker felt too quiet, too small. Cade finally said what he'd been circling around since the crash site. When Command finds out we interfered, they won't ask questions. They'll just wipe the slate. You know that. I know, I said. He stared at me like that wasn't enough. Then say why you're still doing this. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't have one, but because saying it would make it real. Before I spoke, her fingers twitched against the slab. Just a brush, barely movement. Juno noticed too. She checked the monitor and nodded slightly. She's stabilizing. For now. Something in my chest loosened, just a fraction. Cade rubbed a hand over his face. Tell me we're not dragging her back to base. We're not, I said. Then where? I looked toward the blocked tunnel at the rear of the bunker, the one that led to the old supply tunnels no one used anymore. Somewhere they're not watching. Cade looked at me like he wanted to argue, then stopped, because he knew I'd already decided, and he'd follow anyway.